right, 99.9 Punk World Radio FM. You guys already know what time it is. And right here, right now, this Wednesday night, my apologies, we are live with a phenomenal, legendary wrestler from ECW, WCW, WWE, TNA. We could be here all night naming the amazing promotions that this phenomenal, talented individual has been a part of. Without further ado, we got Big Vito right here, live on the radio station Airwaves, and of course, YouTube as well for the video portion. Vito, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me on this great show. I heard a lot of great things about it. And if you didn't know, I am the Don of wrestling, the godfather of all the mafia families, the nephew of Lucky Luciano. Everything is going good. We got a lot of great content on our YouTube page. Got a lot of great stuff on the social media. Thank you very much for having the show. I know you're anxious. I know you got a lot of good questions. I know you got at least 800 or maybe 900,000 people listening to the show, and we're going to top and break some ratings. Even NXT and AEW are going to be jealous tonight.
Hey, I got to say, I know they're all here. They're here for Vito. They're not here for me. They're not here for the guy on the left. They're here for the guy on the right. But Vito, I do know you're a very busy individual as well, so I'm not going to keep you too long tonight. So I'm going to dive right into this, man. But I got to take you back to the year of 1990, where you were actually just wrestling on the independent circuit, but then you were actually approached by now a wrestling federation out there in Japan. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about your very early days within your wrestling career, and of course, what was it like just working in Japan and, of course, being approached by them?
Well, my first year was officially 1991. Now, the first year I made WWF TV. And I was working in the independents doing TVs. And I was approached by Ken Nagasaki of NOW, did the first tour ever. It was me, Harlem Heat, the Equalizer, Manny Fernandez, Alex Sporto. That was the first tour. The legendary Sheik was there. And it was a process to get to the WWF, WWE, because you had to go through Memphis, you had to go through Puerto Rico, you wanted your Rivera jacket, you wanted to be on WWF TV. I did all that in my first 2 years of wrestling. Right? It was 1993, I went to Santo Domingo. 94, I was in Memphis. 95, I was in Puerto Rico. 96, 97, 98, Puerto Rico. To Japan, All Japan, and then going to ECW in 1998.
And I gotta say as well, you were a very busy man in the 1990s, man. Because like you said, you went to so many legendary promotions, did so many amazing things, won so many amazing championships, as we already know, which I know we're gonna get into that. But aside from the Japan aspect of things, I have to ask, what was it like just going from the United States to Japan and back to the States? What kind of travel schedule does that really do to your body, man? And of course, like your sleeping regimen, man, because obviously jumping all around the world like that must be rough no matter how old you are, whether you're young or older. That's definitely a very, very hard on your body.
Well, I think, being able to adjust from the time frame, it's different time schedule. You're going back 12 hours, coming forward 12 hours. But I think the biggest culture shock was watching Japanese wrestling for the first time. I'm in Rivera Steakhouse and standing there with Kevin Sullivan, and I'm watching Stan Hansen and Scott Norton trade clotheslines, and I'm like, what the hell is this? I said, you were all right. You were trained by Johnny Raj. You know how to fight. Just don't get your ass kicked over here. So I didn't get my ass kicked, and I went there numerous amount of times. But you talk about a culture shock, because Puerto Rican wrestling was different. The States were different. And then going to Japan and learning that style. And that's the first time I ever seen the Sheik, the original Sheik. You talk about wild and crazy with a sword and just brutalize people. It was off the hook.
And like you said as well, like Japanese wrestling is entirely different than wrestling here in North America, man.
I prefer Japanese wrestling. The entertainment thing goes out the window. I like to wrestle. I'm a wrestler, so I want to get in there and compete. I want to out wrestle you. You know, just about everybody, with everybody in the business, and gain the respect from everybody. And when it came time to go and shoot, do all that kind of stuff, I guess people were shocked. They said, "Where did you learn this from? You must have been an amateur." I said, "No, I learned this from my wrestling school, Johnny Ross, which is repetition." So, it was a full ball of wax. And I can't take, you know, I can't tell you all of the people who took the time to teach. And I'll say it on this interview like I said on the interview. I can't remember all the names of a lot of guys who contribute. Thank you very much for taking the time to teach me, because now I can teach others what you guys showed me with kindness. Which really treated me like a J-Bo, treated me like a friend. And that goes all the way from the WWF, all the way through Japan, and everywhere in the world. Guys took the time to teach me like we need to do. And that's how I became a pro.
And also, as well, as you briefly mentioned as well, that you actually were a part of the WWF in the very early days of their Monday Night Raw in the year 1991. I was wondering if you could actually tell us a bit more about wrestling as the German evil foreigner, and of course, how did you actually get your very first appearance actually in the World Wrestling Federation back then?
Well, back then, there was a gimmick thing, and I looked like Skull Murphy, and they said you look like the German, so we're going to call you Skull. My first pair of tights came from Taz because he was wrestling as Kid Crush, so that's how we came with Skull Von Crush. So that's where it originated from. And I did that for 8 years and traveled the world, went to all the territories, made my name, and then I was approached by Sonny Blaze, who was working for the WWF at the time, scouting and trying to get guys to come to TV. He said, hey, Skull, you want to come to TV at the WWF? I said, yeah. I said, no problem. So my very first match was against Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. I wrestled Bret Hart's first Intercontinental Championship match on TV. Got to wrestle the British Bulldog and the Boss Man and Typhoon, Virgil, Tatanka. I'm sure I'm missing some guys, but The Undertaker, right, in 1992. I mean, I got to work with all the pros pro, and they never treated me badly. They always gave me offense, and they saw I was a sponge, and I was doing live Monday Night Raws from the Manhattan Center. And that was pretty legendary because I teamed with Iron Mike Sharp, and I was with Coco Beware and Owen Hart. I was probably one of the few guys to wrestle the whole Hart Foundation, from Davey Boy Smith to Bret to Owen to Jim Nyla.
And I have to say as well, just the Manhattan Center, I find that venue was absolutely beautiful, and it was so amazing just to watch Raw back in those days in that little venue, man. It kind of gave a very authentic look to it. I do know, obviously, now when you get bigger, you have to go to different arenas and whatnot, but I really thoroughly liked the look of that little mini arena. It kind of gave it that authentic look. When you turn on an old episode of Raw, you know when you see the Manhattan Center, that's Monday Night Raw.
Guys, when you talk about that place, then you talk about the Elks Lodge, Queen's Elks Lodge. That's where ECW held their TVs. And I wrestled in the Queen's Elks Lodge. So from the Manhattan Center to the Queen's Elks Lodge, talking about two prominent TV places. And then, when you travel with the WWF back then, you go into all the arenas on the East Coast, all the way up from Staten Island to Maine. That covers Connecticut, Rhode Island, just about it. When you talk about Maine, you talk about Kennebunk, up and down the East Coast, you're talking everywhere. And it was a great training and learning experience that the guys today don't get the opportunity to do, because that's where you gain your experience and how you work in front of crowds. You can't learn everything in the performance center, and there's no disrespect to nobody, but guys like myself and everybody who came up the way I did, they would tell you the same thing. Wrestling in territories is the best experience you can get because you really gimmick, you learn kayfabe, you learn how to be a pro wrestler on the road.
And I do know as well, like you mentioned, you had the opportunity to wrestle the entire Hart family. And the one, my favorite Hart family member will always be Owen Hart. God bless his soul. But I have to ask, what was it like just stepping in the ring, going toe-to-toe with Owen Hart? And of course, what was he like just backstage, like interacting off camera? Because I heard he's one of the biggest pranksters back in the WWF back in those days.
He was a wonderful human being. He was a fun guy to be around. He was a prankster, but stepping in the ring with him is no different than stepping in the ring with all the other, because his brother was Bret Hart. You have Davey Boy who wrestled. Jimmy Anvil. You had I wrestled against the Legion of Doom in the WWF. I mean, how many great wrestlers that were there. My first year here, I am looking at Ric Flair, the Macho Man, Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior in his prime. And I'm looking at the Nasty Boys. I'm looking at the Warlord, the Barbarian, Rick Martel, Hercules Hernandez. All these monsters. And then I'm sitting as a kid, and I'm like, shit, I'm getting my ass kicked. I better just be cool. But on a fun note, you know what I mean? In my first wrestling show, get this lineup in my very first wrestling show. The Iron Sheik, Ken Patera, the Wild Samoans, S.D. Jones, Johnny Rods, Cousin Luke. Talk about thick, big men. You were like that. Those were the who's who of wrestling. But Alpha and Sheik was still wrestling. Ken Patera was still wrestling. The Iron Sheik was still just coming off WWF TV as a world champion. I am looking at these guys, and I'm just sitting in the dressing room, and I'm like, and you're going in there as a German, and you're trying, hey kids, you did good tonight, that was really good. And it gave me constructive criticism. It wasn't like nobody else. The Honky Tonk Man was a big supporter. Jimmy Snooker was a big supporter. Bill Eadie, Sergeant Slaughter, the Warlord. There were so many people, S.D. Jones, Jimmy Powers, so many guys who took me under their wing. And I thank them every time I come on a podcast, every time I do this. Because if it wasn't for guys like that to teach me, I would never have been a pro's pro. And, it was good and it was bad because I became a perfectionist. I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to be that pro. I wrestled Bret Hart 4 times in WWF. That's a lot, and he requested me, I wrestled Tatanka 4 times in the WWF. I was requested,
Tatanka is such a nice guy as well. Tatanka is such a nice guy as well.
But you talk about Tatanka had an undefeated streak that hasn't been matched in the WWF. 2 years undefeated. I don't know if anybody realized that. It's just like the Goldberg streak.
I actually did not know that, but now that I think about it, it makes sense because obviously the Goldberg streak it's not more prominent, it's just more well known, if that makes sense, right? So more people remember Goldberg streak, which kind of outweighs the Tatanka side of things.
Which streak was? But now here's another thing, right? We talk about streaks, and this is a great thing. I just had this conversation with my wife. You talk about lucky individuals who have a streak. Tatanka had a streak. Goldberg had a streak. Vito had a streak. Tell me who else had a streak in that time frame. Like, talk about streaks where they go undefeated because they're working a gimmick, right? Terry Funk had a streak when he was in WCW and did the hardcore thing. Ric Flair had a streak during his retirement. My name is up there with those guys. I'm not in there. I wouldn't say I was in there at that tippity-top superstar level. But to have a streak in the WWF or WWE or WCW or TNA or ECW, It's something that's like special. Just special. It works for me. Tatanka's streak is never talked about. I talk about it because that's the first streak that was 2 years running. 2 years. Now, I don't know what happened, why it broke, and Ludwig Borger broke the streak, but Tatanka should have been more than the streak.
Oh, yeah.
Just saying. And I just saw him at a convention in River City. We talked, and you want to know what's funny? It's Tatanka, Typhoon, and Ron Simmons. I come in, and I got my stuff on, and I'm looking good, and I look at them, Vito, how you doing? We love you, man. What's going on? I said, look at you, old bastards, right? And I got the privilege to say that because they respect me and they love me, right? I said, look at you. I said, I came in this business green, all right? And you guys are the best. And you guys are still here, and I can never be a vet. Would you retire already? I mean, really, and they laughed. They laughed because they wrestled, but these guys are the ones who laid the foundation for me, and I thank them. Just like Jerry Lawler, right? When you talk about Memphis, Tennessee, to this day, and even just a couple weeks ago, Jerry Lawler, thank you for giving me the opportunity to learn Memphis history, wrestle at Memphis Memories, right? In the Mid-South Coliseum, be part of the Gilbert Lawler feud and learn the history of wrestling, not just the New York side, but there was a Southern side. And this is where you learn how to be a wrestler. It was, and I wrestled with guys like the Rock and Roll Express, the Dream Machine, the Boogie Woogie Man, Jerry Lawler, Brian Christopher, the Moondogs in a Moondog Battle Royal. I turned Del Rios into the Spellbinder. Pretty cool stuff.
And speaking of pretty cool, I do know with the Jerry Lawler aspect side of things, you guys put on some phenomenal 5-star matches in that feud, man. You and Lawler worked very well in the ring together. And just by rewatching those matches as a wrestling fan, any real actual wrestling fan can tell that you guys did very well at just, feeding off each other and just two amazing in-ring competitors in one ring, just kicking ass and doing what they both love to do. You guys are absolutely phenomenal. Vito, Jerry Lawler, two of the best to actually do it.
No, you know what it was? Jerry Lawler was the king of Memphis. Wasn't the king of Memphis for nothing. He beat everybody. It was his baby. You know what I mean? It's just like it was Vince McMahon's baby to get the WWF from his father to bring it to the WWE. Jerry Lawler had Memphis. And when you got to wrestle in the Mid-South Coliseum, and I told him, I said, thank you for the privilege to learn Memphis wrestling. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be, booking me during that time because I learned so much. Education you can't pay for. Just like Carlos Colon in the WWC, Savio Vega and Profe and Chiqui Star and Hurricane Castillo, Miguel Perez in the AWF, the LWFA. Back, my first promotion with Savio Vega, who was my tag team partner in Puerto Rico. And here I come off of TV, off of WWF TV, the people knew who I was. And I'm a babyface, and I'm a German. My first run through there. So here I am trying to be a heel, and I'm learning the business. Then I've got to learn how to be a babyface, and the people like me. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? Amigo, don't worry, just keep going. Learning experience. All those guys in the Caribbean, thank you very much because you taught me. Thank you.
And we actually have a fan question that popped in, and I will admit, I am actually jealous. I am jealous of this question, Vito, because I'm surprised I did not put this in my question list. But shout out to Matthew Rodriguez. We're going to jump right ahead, and then we're obviously going to come back, but I feel like this is too good to not ask. He says...
the time limit. You're paying me by the hour, so I'm good. Don't worry about it.
He said, "Hey Vito, question: any memories of Armageddon 2005, where you and Nunzio as an elf did a segment with the Boogeyman? Who pitched this idea, and did you hate eating Boogeyman's worms?"
I just saw the Boogeyman at the Riverside Convention, and that was a big moment for the Boogeyman. It was his moment. Now, granted, you talk about being good at your craft. My job as a heel was to get guys over, right? And coming up in the independent scene, being privileged to wrestle in the WWF, wrestle all the big stars, I wasn't like the other independent guys because I'm wrestling the Bret Harts, the Hogans, the Sergeant Slaughter's, the Bill Eady's, the Snookers, and these guys requested to work with me. And I used to get mad, right? Man, I need to get over. And, I want to be a star. I said, Vito, the reason we're putting you with these guys because you make them look 20 years younger. You actually make them work with you. They enjoy working with you because you're club and you understand the business. But to me, I wanted to achieve more. I wasn't satisfied with just being that guy. I wanted to be big, but I learned how to be a worker. Okay? When it came time to, it was a make or break time for the Boogeyman. It was that moment. And I said to him, I said, all right, brother. I says, we're here. Vito, I'm nervous. I says, I don't know. I says, bro, I want you to pick me up and slam me as hard as you can. I says, do not make this week. I said, I'm going to do everything possible and get you over. That was the making of the Boogeyman. Eating the worms. Nunzio had to eat the worms the week before, 2 weeks before. So we're sitting in the back and why do I have to eat worms? How come Vito's not here? And Nunzio, shut the frig up. Just leave it alone. Why do I got to do everything around here, right? Come on. So Nunzio friggin' goes and he eats a couple of them. He spits them out. And Nunzio, you shit the bed. That's it. Nunzio's my brother. I love him to death. But he couldn't eat a worm. So here it is at the thing. And we're going back and, here comes the booker. Got to get the Boogeyman over. I said, okay, no problem. Got to eat some worms. So Nunzio goes, ha, you got to eat worms tonight. So Nunzio, shut up, all right? Just mind your business. Just leave me alone. So when it came time to do this finish, he was I said, bro, I want you to slam me through that mat. If you don't slam me through the mat, I'm going to get up and I'm going to crack. He put that finish on me, and I was fine. That's the way business is done. When it came times to eating the worms, I ate the most worms in WWE history because that was my job that night. That's what I had to do. They said, Vito, how'd you do it? That's because I was a student of the business. That's what it takes to be a pro. And my job that night was to get the Boogeyman over. Period.
And I gotta ask about the worm situation, because obviously they're real worms. There's no way to fake like the wiggling aspect. Like those are real worms. Like I have to ask, like how did they taste? Did they at least kind of clean them before, or they just take them out of dirt and just be like, there you go, chow down? Like how did those worms actually taste, man?
Okay. The WWE used to buy crates of worms. That was an expensive ordeal. That they, if I remember correctly, they were organic worms. I don't know how you get organic worms, but they did it. And they were clean. But when you're doing a job on pay-per-view, any job you do on TV, it's got to be snug. It's got to look good. And it was my job. So everyone's shoving them down. Hey, if you ever ate snake, it tastes like chicken. If you ate a very frog, it tastes like chicken. If you ever ate alligator, it tastes like chicken. Hey, everything tastes like chicken. So, there's your answer.
But also, as well as going back a little bit, in '98, you actually met up with Taz at Johnny Rod's training school, who happened to actually get you an ECW tryout, from what I actually read. I was wondering, from what you actually can recall about that ordeal, can you tell us a bit more about your ECW tryout? And of course, what was it like just being a part of the original ECW brand?
All right. So, people who don't know, the class that came out of Johnny Rod's school was Mondo Clean, right? Who wrestled as Damien Demento. Big Sweet William, who was Build 'em Up. You had Tommy Dreamer, you had Taz, you had Devon Dudley, you had Big Vito LoGrasso. So I had just come back from Japan, All Japan Pro Wrestling, and I had pinned Mizawa on a shoot. And I finished my tour of Puerto Rico, and I needed to do something to get a job in the business, because every time I wrestled, they said, Vito, why don't you work for the WWE? Why don't you have a job in the bed? And I couldn't answer them because I said, I don't know. I said, I've done everything in 8 years to get to this point. So I went to ECW, had my bag. I talked to Taz, who helped break me in the business. And he introduced me to Paul. He says, okay, Vito, I'm going to give you a shot. Now, being that I went and did all these great things, was too good for my own good, ahead of my time, and I was a great wrestler. So people didn't want to wrestle me, or people were afraid to wrestle me, or people didn't like the fact that I had a good run as a drummer, you know what I mean? And it was just one of those things where, okay, you're going to start from the bottom. You got to earn your job here. Come back next week. I go to ECW. I go to the arena. All right, Vito, your first match is Chris Chetti, Nova, and Blue Meanie. So we don't want you to do anything. I want you to take the finish. I said, guys, I want you to do your finish. I want you to do your finish. I want you to do your finish. I said, just take safe. And these guys respected me. I just pinned Mizawa in Japan, All Japan. I said, Peter, you realize? I said, yep. I said, just hit me with your finish. All three of them hit me with their finish, go in the back. All right, Vito, did great tonight. Come back next week. I had to earn my spot. And that's how I got the ECW.
And I have to say, one of my favorite ECW matches that you actually had the opportunity to compete in was actually yourself versus Rob Van Dam, the whole fucking show. You guys put on one hell of a phenomenal contest, and also that elbow drop that you did during that match was absolutely flawless.
Probably one of the guys I have the best chemistry with. I love Rob Van Dam. He's a great human being. I was on the rise in ECW, and I got to tell you, when you wrestle, it was SBK for Skullbone Crush, and RVD, and I had done the Skullbone Crush bus trip that day, and here me and Rob were going, and if I would have won the title that night, there would have been no qualms, because I earned it, but it just wasn't my time. And you know what? And I was wrestling Jerry Lynn and Rob Van Dam before their feud. So I'm wrestling Rob Van Dam. I'm wrestling Jerry Lynn. I'm wrestling Sabu. I'm wrestling the heavyweight champion Taz. It's a pretty stacked lineup every weekend wrestling. Wrestling the best in the company every week. And, and everybody knew every time they came, shit, fuck, Vito's in the ring. We're going to know we're going to go 20 minutes. Fuck him. The hell with him. I hate him. Because I was just a worker. I was into the business.
And yourself and Sabu had some phenomenal matches as well. As we already know, Sabu is a crazy SOB in that ring. Definitely is a high risk taker. What was it like, just you being a technical wrestler going against someone like Sabu that's a really dangerous risk taker?
It really wasn't. You talk about chemistry with the wrestlers, and if you know how to work, and these guys knew how to work because they've been to Japan, they had time in the business. They were working, and here I come in. I might not have worked many independents because I was working for companies. And that's a key aspect of things. I worked for the WWF, I did WCW TVs, I worked for San Domingo, I worked for Puerto Rico companies, I worked for Japan companies, I worked for Memphis, Tennessee. I came back and I went for WWC. And then in between this time, I did independence, but when I did the independence, I worked the big stars who were coming off TV. So I never got to wrestle guys who were my, I guess you say, I never wrestled guys who were at that level because I wrestled all the best of the best. And guys, some guys resented it. Some guys thought it was like, oh, why is Vito getting over this? Well, that's because I earned this. You know what I mean? And I took a lot of criticism, because like, here I am coming in. But when it came to backing up what I could do, I will out wrestle, not beat me. When it came to mat wrestling, I learned that at Johnny Rod's. And the Johnny Rod's crew, like a guy named Larry DeGarris and Taz, and everybody in that school who taught me how to wrestle from the bottom up. I didn't go in there with an amateur background. I was a basketball player. I was an athlete. I played football, basketball, baseball. Wrestling wasn't on my charts. So when I learned how to wrestle, that's what I learned. And when I went to Japan and I was, going in there shooting against Olympic wrestlers, or guys like, Mizawa, Kabashi, Dr. Death Steve Williams, Gary Albright, Tinru. Here I am, wrestling with these guys, the greats of the business. It's like, wow.
And when you said best in the business as well, because I do know you're one of the best in-ring competitors to actually do it, but aside from being an in-ring competitor, I do know you are literally absolutely phenomenal at conducting a promo, man. In my honest opinion, majority of your best promos actually came from your WCW days, where you actually did promos on Kevin Nash and then Goldberg. I mean, your promos were just so believable and honestly just so amazing, man. You felt the passion in your promos.
Because I was, what, guys? I was just being myself, and I believed I was the best, and here I am wrestling the best in the business. You know what I mean? And you're wrestling at that level, and you're main eventing on night, you're doing all your stuff. And hold on, let me decline this. And you're doing all this stuff, and you're wrestling the best in WCW. When I made WCW and got to be tag team champion, hardcore champion, does anybody realize that Hogan was there, Nash was there, Scott Hall was there, Ric Flair was there, Goldberg was there, Arn Anderson was there, Sting was there, DDP was there. How many countless stars were there? But I still got my nose in there. And if the booking and all that stuff that was going on backstage about who was in charge, who was not in charge, I could have been U.S. champion. I could have been another kind of champion. I might have been able to slip a world championship. I never said, I'm going to be world champion, and I was never in that. Because winning belts, I just wanted to be known as a great wrestler. I didn't politic. I didn't hang out with a clique because I wanted to be somebody. I wanted to be somebody because I was Vito LoGrasso. I was Scovan Crush, a great wrestler. You know what? When you have to do that, they used to tell me, Vito, if you kiss a little ass and politic, it just wasn't me. I mean, maybe if it wouldn't have been me, and it wouldn't have been honest. And if I would have kissed ass to get to where I was, I know that's the way to business, and I know it's been documented with so many great guys, but it just wasn't me. And people respect that today. And here I come as the Don, and here I come in this new character, and here I come and everybody's saying, oh my God, he's recreated himself. Does everybody know I was a German? I was Uncle Chester, who was the relative of Uncle Fester. When I had a light bulb in my mouth and I had my hand, I was Sledgehammer Rock, construction work, Staten Island, doing my thing, and I was Skullbone Crush. I was Big Vito LoGrasso. I was Vito in the WWE. And here I come as the Don. That's a lot of characters for one guy's career. Harry Krishna.
And also,
the Harry Krishna where I handed out pamphlets, came in with a tambourine. Oh my God, how many things can you do?
and I gotta say as well, because when we're on the topic of like WCW and the amazing accolades and championships you won, I do know as well that you were a two-time WCW Hardcore champion as well, and then also on top, two-time WCW Tag Team World Champion as well. But I gotta dig into the hardcore aspect for a moment, because I do know you actually won one of those championships off the late great, the legendary Terry Funk, where he actually gave you props after the match and shook your hand. I have to talk a bit more about that match, man. What was it like just stepping in the ring with hardcore legend, the late great, the legendary Terry Funk, and just working with him and having him put you over and pass his title onto you?
I can't thank Mr. Funk enough for doing that. And when it comes time, when it's your time in the business, he respected me enough to say, "Hey, okay, going to wrestle with Vito," and it wasn't like I was in awe of him. It wasn't like he's a legend. I was like, I'm going in and I'm wrestling. I'm going to wrestle Terry Funk, because in my mind, I was, Big Vito, and Big Vito wanted to be the best in the world, and Big Vito wanted to be the greatest wrestler ever. And here I got the opportunity to wrestle one of the greatest wrestlers of our generation, who's not mentioned on everybody's Mount Rushmore or anybody's top 5. But when you talk about wrestlers, he was NWA champion, wrestling in WCW, famous in Japan, world renowned, a movie star, tough man. And here I am going toe to toe with Terry Funk. And it wasn't like I was wrestling in awe. I was wrestling Terry Funk. And if anything didn't go right, the outcome probably maybe been different. But him shaking my hand and giving me that belt, that was like, "Hey kid, congratulations. I respect you. Good luck. Here's the torch." He passed me the torch. And probably one of the greatest things in my life, in my career. I thank him, and I can never, thank him enough. What I mean? That night in the bar, Mean Gene Okerlund, Hulk Hogan, Lex Luger, Ric Flair, everybody who's a who's who that was in that bar that night in the hotel bar, and they said, "Guys, I want everybody to raise their glass. I want to congratulate Vito. Congratulations, you made it tonight. I beat Terry Funk." And everybody saluted me in that bar. That was the biggest night of my life, because you got guys like Hogan and Flair and Nash, Hall, and like you're looking around and everybody's, "Vito, good job, man. You're one of us. You paid your dues. Congratulations." Because all of them went through the same thing I did, because somebody had to pass them the torch. So they understood what it was.
And if I'm not mistaken as well, you actually passed the torch on to Lance Storm as well, because I do know you guys actually went against each other for the Hardcore Championship on an edition of Monday Night Nitro, where I believe it was Lance Storm that actually defeated for the title.
That wasn't a passing of the torch. That was politics bullshit that went on backstage. And when I said my promo, and this is nothing against Lance Storm, this was just politics. I had beaten Terry Funk, and they were, it was a politics struggle in the back of WCW. Who's booking, who's not booking? Who's in charge, who's not in charge? Who's your guy, who's not your guy? This has nothing to do with Lance Storm. He's a very good wrestler, and I have nothing against him. But when they took the title off me, and everybody in that dressing room thought it was bullshit that night. And here I go in there. Jimmy Hart was standing next to me, and this is documented. I said, "Vito, this isn't right." I said, "Jimmy, this is fine. When I went out there and I cut that promo and it was heartfelt, as everybody knows, this baby, you can't kick my ass, and that was fucking true. And everybody knows I have freaking running man. I wrestled him anyway, and I did it. You know, and I told everybody, I said, I know I'm not getting this title back. I know this is bullshit. This is politics, and it was just one of those things where I couldn't fight it, but I still went out there and I did what I was supposed to do, and it was probably one of the best title for title matches that year in WCW.
And I gotta say that them stripping you the title definitely sounds like a Bischoff decision, man. Which we all know Bischoff's decisions were a little, you know.
No, it was a Laurinaitis decision.
I believe that actually. Yeah, John Laurinaitis. Yeah, I believe that.
John Laurinaitis.
Wow.
What a wonderful human being. Thank you, John. I appreciate you. I love you. I hope you have a great life. I hope everything is good for you. I mean, I know you did tremendous things in the wrestling business. Thank you for everything you did to me.
Yeah, John Laurinaitis, all I'm going to say is bring about the topic. I'm not a John Laurinaitis fan. Obviously, I don't know him personally, but he was the most annoying asshole that ever popped on television. Whenever he pops on, I want to take rusted nails and shove them through my ears. And I'm a DJ, for God's sake. I need to listen to music to actually, survive and pay my bills. But I would sacrifice my eardrums so I don't have to hear his goddamn voice again. That's just me. The whole, what he sounds like when he talks, man.
Anybody can read between the lines. John Laurinaitis, what a wonderful human being. What a great contributor to the wrestling business. What an immaculate human being for everything he contributed. Thank you, John. I greatly appreciate you. And I still hate John Laurinaitis for 9,769 fucking days. But John Laurinaitis, thank you.
And also, after the purchase of WCW, one of the biggest angles was actually the invasion, where, as we already know, ECW, WCW jumped ship and took over. We all know the story of the invasion. But I was wondering, did the WWF actually, around this time actually reach out to you to partake in this angle? And if so, can you tell us a bit more about the business, aspect side of things? And of course, why wasn't Vito a part of the invasion? Because I mean, there were some people part of the invasion.
John Laurinaitis.
Jesus.
John Laurinaitis.
Fuck. All I gotta say is, man, all I gotta say is, aside from Laurinaitis, just picturing it in my head, I think you would have been absolutely phenomenal for the invasion angle. Because there were some wrestlers a part of the invasion angle where you sit back and go, man, you just don't fit. You know what I mean? But people like yourself, the brutes, the big guys, the technical wrestlers, they really could come in and beat the living shit out of someone and take over. You replace them with other people. You know what I mean? Vito should have been a part of that. That's just my opinion. I know we can't change history, but
opinion has been shared by many people in the wrestling business. But it was John Laurinaitis. It was spite, it was politics, it was nonsense. But
and one of
I'm not here to spread bad. I'm just telling the truth. And when people say, "Why didn't this John Laurinaitis? Why didn't that?" It was John Laurinaitis. There is a lot of things I can say, but I don't like to say bad things about people. It is history. It is what it is. He has his own things going on today. I wish him the best of luck. I hope him and his family are doing well. But he wasn't a very nice guy.
And one of the last WCW questions I do have, because obviously you were a part of WCW until it closed its doors in 2001, where the merger happened with WWF. Do you actually remember the atmosphere backstage at one of the very last shows? And of course, did you guys have any idea as talent what was going on, and if that Vince really did buy WCW? What was the conversations going on backstage during WCW's final days?
Everybody worried about their job. Everybody worried about where they're going to wind up, and a lot of people wound up unemployed. They paid off some contracts, and I wasn't the only one who didn't go over in the merger. But if you weren't a John Laurinaitis guy and you didn't play the politics game and you didn't kiss ass, you didn't go over, and that's the truth.
And also as well, from 2005 to 2007, you were actually an in-ring competitor for the WWE for the second time, but this time you end up wearing a dress during your matches. I was wondering, can you? I know you probably answered this multiple times, but I have to dig into this in case our listeners haven't heard this story. Can you break down just the story of the dress, and of course, who initially came to you with this idea? Because I got to say, first and foremost, you kicked ass. You actually had this streak as well with the dress on. I mean, there's so many people that actually have to admit they got their ass kicked by Vito during the streak while wearing a dress. I gotta say, you made it look good, man. That's all I gotta say. You made that shit look good.
Thank you. So, when you talk about Vito and his 2005 to 2007 run, you're talking about, I came in with Nunzio, the F.B.I., and I helped him win the Cruiserweight title, and I was his bodyguard. And we had a great run. We went to tag team. We should have been tag team champions. We were a very good tag team. And then they went with the split for ECW and all this other stuff, and they tried to come up with something. And because I was under criminal investigation, WWE helped me get out of some legal issues, and that's why the dress came up. And thank God all those problems went away. Probably the best run I had in my career. I had an undefeated streak. It was great. And probably I did some things that people still today talk about it. I was ahead of my time. And I opened the door for a lot of people out there to be themselves in the gender society that we have today. People ask me today, hey, once you go back and just said, no, shut the door. It's over. I'm done wrestling. I'm Lucky Luciano's nephew. I'm the godfather of all the mafia families. I paid my dues. I did my thing. The dress was a great thing. It will go down in history that I had a winning streak. The dress gimmick was a success. It was better than what anybody could ever dream. Just like when they put polka dots on Dusty Rhodes and they said, you can be a common man. If you're a worker, and because of all the people who took the time to teach me, and learning the business, and going to the territories, and knowing how to work, that's why they give it purpose.
And if I'm not mistaken as well, I have heard as well, just from dirt sheets like years ago, that this was actually inspired by a Sopranos character as well. I believe one of the Sopranos characters, like off screen, like got caught like wearing a dress or something like that. I heard this was actually overall inspired by a Sopranos character.
No, I was under investigation, guys. And, it was a pretty emotional time in my life, and we had a lot of things going on, and the WWE had to cover it up, and they didn't want bad press, so this is what we did, and that's what happened. The Chin Gigante wore a bathrobe in the streets to avoid prison time. Well, put two and two together, put who I'm related to, put down my history in the streets of Staten Island. You put two and two together and you figure it out without saying anything else.
And also as well, I have to ask, obviously in 2005, the late great Eddie Guerrero passed away. I have to ask, before he passed away, did you get the opportunity to actually kind of like, be backstage with him before his untimely passing? And if so, what was it like just kind of being back there with Eddie Guerrero? Because I heard he was one of the best individuals to be around backstage.
It was Nunzio, myself, Chavo, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Rey Mysterio. We used to go to the gym on the road together. So we all shared a good amount of time together. He was a wonderful human being. He was a good family man. Eddie had his issues, fought through it, became world champion. Wonderful man, loved by everybody. So that's not good about him.
I gotta say, when he passed away, that was probably the one day where I cried like my absolute eyes out, man. Like when my favorite wrestlers pass, I do shed a tear. But Eddie, it was like almost like losing someone you were close to, man, because he had such a beautiful connection with the fans.
Well, that day when he passed away, me and Nunzio were at the gym, and we said, "Where is everybody?" When we got to the arena, we found out that Eddie had passed away, and we were going overseas that night. and talk about shock and an emptiness, and you're like, you, everything that you wanted to do in your life just flashed in front of you. And Eddie Guerrero is the reason I bought that beautiful Cadillac I bought in Staten Island. And Eddie Guerrero is the reason why I bought my first house within 2 weeks after his death. And I bought a Cadillac and a house within 2 weeks. And I said, man, I'm going to buy that house. I said, I can't wait anymore. I said, my Cadillac's been staring at me every night for a month. And I went out and bought it. And I got to live my life, and I got to do things because of that. So he did have an impact on my life to go out and fulfill those dreams and do these things.
Yeah, I gotta say, those Cadillacs that he had and those lowriders that he brought out every single night, absolutely astonishing, man. I will admit, I was excited to see Eddie Guerrero because he's my favorite wrestler, but I was also excited to see what other lowrider he was going to roll out in, because you knew it was going to be something different every Friday night.
Nah, hey, man, it's just the WWE putting on a good show and, you know, giving the proper tools for anybody's gimmick to get over.
And also as well, jumping right ahead, August of 2017, you actually started a podcast with Vince Russo. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about your relationship with Vince Russo, because I do know obviously it goes back to WCW, but of course, what actually made yourself and Russo actually team up to actually just, you know, to do a podcast together? Because I got to say, I avidly watch this all the time, and you guys did such an amazing job back in 2017.
Vince Russo and I have been friends for over 30 years. And he used to come to Johnny Rod's school, and he was, you know, he was one of the guys who wanted to be a wrestler, manager, and went to the wrestling business. So he got the first taste of what wrestling was, and he, you know, I was the one who encouraged him to apply for the job at the magazine with the WWE. And the reason we started doing the podcast, my wife had a stroke, and trying to rehabilitate her and get our mind working again. So we started to, you know, we came up with a plan to put her on the computer again to get her mind working. And that's how I started the podcast. So there were some really good shows, there were some learning curves, but what people realized is that it wasn't a podcast, and did it to get my life healthy. And then, you know, there were some issues with some individuals who really didn't get it. But, you know, when you talk about Vin Russo, you know, we've been friends for a long time, and, you know, it wasn't like I went out there trying to help. I was like, okay, how do I help my wife? And I said, how about if I get my wife on the computer again to get her mind work? Because when you have a stroke, you lose your, you know, part of your mind, part of your brain, and she was a shell of herself, so I had to get her to work. So, you know, that's where that came from. Anybody who tried to shit on it or say things bad, you know, shame on them, because it wasn't that I wanted to be a podcast. I did it for my wife's rehabilitation. What people don't know is my wife has been handicapped for 10 years. I've been taking care of her for 10 years, still today. So, you know, kudos to Vince for helping me with this. And now I have a brand and I have all this good stuff. And my wife does all the production of all my stuff, does all my social media, all because of that little podcast we started when she needed help.
And I gotta say as well, that's the one thing I cannot stand about this internet and internet wrestling fans. I put wrestling fans and internet wrestling fans into two separate categories. Wrestling fans, to me, are the definition of individuals that do understand the business, kind of, you know, behind the scenes and on TV, know what's a shoot, what's not a shoot. And there's internet wrestling fans that just absolutely shit on anything and everything. And I gotta say, I want to say first and foremost, I'm sorry you had to deal with those internet wrestling fans on that podcast, because a lot of individuals, they don't understand what great things they actually have and what great content they have, and then when it goes away, they shit on it, then when it goes away, they complain that it goes away. I just don't understand how the internet works sometimes, but I thoroughly enjoyed that podcast and what you guys actually did, man. I really hope you and Vince Russo team up again.
You never know where the Don is going to wind up, and all I can tell you is is that I have the respect from every pro wrestling and wrestling business, and I can say that confidently. And anytime anybody needed something, I was always there. Anytime, you know, they needed help or anything, I was always available. Anytime something happened, I'd give somebody a phone call. Hey, you got your lunch? Or you need anything? We always look out for each other. And when you talk about wrestlers coming up, brothers know who brothers are, and they use the term brother loosely, but friends in the wrestling business and respect go a long way. And when my wife needed help, there was DDP who helped, and Rob Van Dam who helped, and Vince Russo who helped, and a couple other guys who helped us. It wasn't about money. It was about mind, and it was about exercise. It was about supplements to help my wife. And that goes, because like when you talk about Vito LoGrasso, anybody can call me anytime. I'll pick up my phone and hit what's up. There have been many I've helped. I never boast about it. I never did a GoFundMe for my wife. I never asked anybody to pay all medical bills. I handle my own business, because it's what a man does, a family. And, does everybody have issues in their house? One thing you always learn, no matter how good everybody's house seems on the outside, everybody's got ghetto in their house. And that's the truth. Everybody's got something going on in their house. They just might not advertise it. Things go on in my house, but did you ever hear Vito complain about it? No, I handle it best I can. I got a wife who loves me to death. I take care of her. I love her. And could I have walked away from her? Yeah, I could have and said, but she's my wingman, she's my best friend, she's my wife. You don't leave your wife in distress, because if anybody's out there listening, I know there are, but here's something very important. The question is, who's going to push me in a wheelchair when I get old? And when you take your marriage vows, the sicker or poor, for better or worse, the richer or poor, sickness came first in our relationship. She's been sick for a long time. That's why I walked away from wrestling. When I started wrestling a couple of years ago, and she got sick, she went to the hospital for a time. They said, that's it, I'm done. Now that I can't work away with each other, gotta be home. Now wrestling has taken a new level. I reinvented myself, and this is why we have what we have today, where I'm doing the radio show.
And I gotta say as well, I mean, you have had an illustrious career, man. And I gotta say, right then and there, you taking a step back from the ring to take care of your family. That's what a man does, man. And that's what a Don does, in my honest opinion. You are handling what you got to handle. And as a wrestling fan for a minute, I can't even complain. I can't even be upset about that. As much as I love seeing the Don, Big Vito in the ring, at the end of the day, from a man to a man, you got to take care of your family, and family comes first before anything. So I got to give you kudos to that, man. You're definitely doing your thing.
Like, the Godfather, Don Vito Corleone said in The Godfather, he was talking to Frank Sinatra, Johnny Fontane, do you spend time with your family? A man is not a man if he doesn't spend time with his family. Spend time with them.
And one of the last questions I do have for you tonight, because obviously we briefly spoke about it, your brand, how your wife actually helps you with your content and on social media and whatnot. I just want to dig into your brand right quick, because obviously we talked about your amazing career. We talked about all the in-ring success, but I got to talk about your amazing YouTube channel, because I'm subscribed. I hit the bell. I see everything popping up daily. Content has been rolling out. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about the Don Vito brand, and of course, what other than YouTube, what other services do you actually offer, like any merchandise, anything like that? That way, individuals that are listening or watching on YouTube, they can snag themselves some Don Vito merch.
Well, you talk about going to thebigvito.com, and you talk about going to our website. Check us out on LinkedIn. You check us out on Twitter at the Big Vito brand. Go to Instagram, the Big Vito brand. Go to TikTok, the Big Vito brand. Go to our YouTube at the Big Vito brand. We have a lot of great stuff. We have a lot of great matches. We have merchandise. We have shirts. We have pictures. We got everything. The goal is to get back on TV. Since I am the godfather of Italian families, Where will family number 5 wind up? Will it be WWE NXT? Will it be AEW? Will it be TNA with the FBI? Will it be an MLW? Will it be an NWA? Where will it be? We shall find out. That is the goal, guys. One more small run. One more time. New character, the Don, Big Vito LoGrasso, the nephew of Lucky Richard.
I gotta say quickly, I really hope. Me personally, I watch TNA, WWE, AEW. I watch all of it, but I really would love to see you in AEW, man. I really hope. I don't know if Tony Khan's ever going to come across this interview, but if he does, and you got this far, TK, give the Don a call. You know you want to. Give him an offer he cannot refuse, and let's get the Don. Let's get Big Vito back on television, man. Like I'm telling you, I would love to see you in an AEW ring.
No, that's the goal. That's the plan. And for all the wrestling companies out there, I'm available. Make me an offer I can't refuse. I do it for you. Maybe you could do it for me.
And I gotta say, first and foremost, Vito, before we part ways, thank you so much, man, for a little bit of your time here this evening. Like I told you before you went live, I grew up watching you when I was younger. Now I'm old, and I get the chance to interview the man himself. So thank you, man, so much for just years of in-ring competition, years of putting your body and career on the line for crazy wrestling fans like myself, man. Years of entertainment, thank you so much. It was such an honor speaking with you, and of course getting to watch all your amazing matches throughout your illustrious career. I do hope to see you pop back on my TV screen once again in the near future, but for now, again, thank you so much, Vito, for years of matches, and of course just this interview, man. It was such an honor spending this past hour and 2 minutes chatting with you.
You're very welcome, guys. I'm available for bookings. Go to BigVito at BigVito.com. Email me. Man's going to put it all out there for us. I'm accepting bookings. Guys, for any occasion, you got a party, you got weddings, whatever it is. It doesn't have to just be wrestling. You got a school, public speaking, you got a movie role, anything I can be part of, let's get it done. Let's get it on paper. All the money I'm making right now is going for my wife's medical bill. So we're just trying to survive there. That's why we're doing this. So the Don is working for the family.
Hey, thank you so much again, Vito. Have yourself a wonderful night, and hopefully down the line we shall talk again soon. But for now, have a phenomenal night, and of course, a great rest of the week. Thank you so much.
Salute.